What does it take to become a coach and step into the identity of one? What's good? I'm Rob Cressy, and welcome to Built for the Game. And I am so excited for today's conversation because this is going to be a very unique and specific one with an awesome person. And joining me today is Emily Chapman. Emily, how you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. And for context, you're on my list of rising star relationships in my life over the last 6 months. So 6 months ago, you and I did not know each other, but then we were both part of a program all around creating short form viral content. You live in Chicago. I'm a Chicago guy, lived there for more than a decade. We vibed based on what we both talk about in terms of how we help other people. Then you joined our community at Unlimited. Side note, if you're interested in joining us, go to creatingunlimited.com. And that's where our relationship got to deepen and we got to learn more about each other. We even got to have a coffee together in person in Chicago, which was such a gift to be able to see somebody online and meet them in person. And here we are now. Did I get that correct?
You did. You did. It's weird. It seems like much longer. Like I've known you much longer than that. But
And why would that be?
I think because we just connected on so many different levels in terms of business, personal growth, entrepreneurship, family life, just everything.
Totally agree with all of that because there's depth to it. It's one of those things when I like walking into a house for the first time, you're like, oh, this is the one, is you want to find your people. And here you are as a creator and as an entrepreneur. And now you are stepping into a new identity as a coach. And I thought it'd be interesting to have this conversation because I've gone through this transition myself. As I've talked about often, I never set out to become a coach. This is never something that was ever in my vision of what I do. I just lived like one for more than a decade because entrepreneurship is the greatest personal growth and development program known to man. Because if I can make myself better today than I was yesterday, then I keep doing that, good things are going to happen. Until eventually I started to get hired to help people be better at business by being better at life. I had no offer, no website, no nothing. But then I just started to land clients. And it's like, well, wait a second. Is there something in this coaching thing? And for me, this ultimately became my higher calling and purpose because I love to help people. And right now, Emily, you're in that unique transition of becoming a coach. And there's multiple layers of this from the business of coaching to the identity of coaching. And let's start with that, the identity of being a coach. How do you feel around calling yourself a coach?
So I think this is actually a very interesting question because for the longest time, I had a very negative connotation with the word coach and very limited beliefs around the term coach. And I think it's because what I had experienced in the past from programs I had bought or downloads or this or that, the information that I was receiving was just like a lot of fluff. And the people who were leading these things, I didn't feel like they really cared about their clients the way that I would. So for the longest time, I was very resistant to the term coach until I met and hired my first coach actually. And is one of the most wonderful people I've ever met who genuinely cares about people and kind of lifted the veil to a whole other realm of people genuinely trying to serve one another. And then when you and I were in the program together, our coaches there, also wonderful business leaders and really investing in their students. And then when I met you and Colin, it was just another round of good people who are making differences in people's lives because they genuinely want them to succeed. And when I saw that label as a coach, I was like, that's absolutely what I want to do. And so, yeah, now it's the label I was resistant to that specific label for so long, but it's just being connected to all these wonderful people who are actually like acting out of service and wanting to like really help people, I think is like one of the most wonderful things. And that for me made me be like, I absolutely want to be a coach.
Yeah, and for me it was a unique thing because I've worn multiple identities in my entrepreneurial journey because I originally left my corporate ad sales job to be a full-time entrepreneur and creator whose dream was to get paid to talk about sports for a living. So I was baking sports, Rob, for so long. And then as part of it, a mentor said, Rob, if you ever hope to get paid to do what you love, you better be doing it already. And I was like, I want to get paid to talk about sports for a living. How in the world do you do that? Become a host, get good at on camera, teach yourself how to create a podcast. So then I became Podcast Rob. So I got Bacon Sports Rob and Podcast Rob. But then all of a sudden came the identity of Rob stepping into being a coach. And it felt foreign to me, not because I didn't know what I was doing, because for me, coaching is almost effortless for me because it's who I am. It's a lifestyle, it's a mindset, and it's a way of being. It's why I was never concerned once I started to get hired as a coach, more in the world of high performance around habits, routines, and mindsets. All I had to do is reverse engineer everything that I'd done over the last decade of my own life. So that part to me was easy. I always loved helping people. That's always been a part of what I do. I'm a very inclusive person, but something as simple as someone be like, hey, Rob or Emily, what is it that you do? Felt kind of foreign to me to say I'm a coach. And this was my own story that I needed to remove my own fear, judgments, or self-limiting beliefs around. And it's actually what led many of us to this point is I started working with Colin in building my coaching offer, from my website to my branding, to my marketing, to my newsletter, to all of these various things that are aligned to someone who is a professional coach, because there is a distinction. And I know the online world is very almost like curious or weird or different around the term coach. Because as you've identified, Emily, there are a lot of people out there who do not do things the right way, and they will call themselves coaches. And they're coaches in the name of, let me try and get as much money as I can, versus being a coach who comes from service. And for me, I have a very similar story. When I hired my very first coach, a branding coach, it completely changed my life, because for the first time ever, I had someone who was there to support me in my vision and my dreams. And as an entrepreneur, it can be a very lonely journey where you've got this idea of what's possible, and a lot of people don't understand what you do. And to have someone be like, no, I got you. This is all totally possible, and let's do this together. Instantly, I was like, oh, I get the value of coaching. So I think part of being a coach is also coaches work with other coaches because we all have a desire to grow and be the best.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I'm curious to hear from you in this, in how you share yourself as a coach. Do you feel comfortable in that right now? Or where do you feel resistance? Because it's something that I felt and a lot of people feel on calling yourself a coach.
I think the resistance in the actual term coach, I think only came up when I used to have those very limiting beliefs on like what a coach was. I think the resistance now sometimes happens, well, I'm transitioning out of, the 9 to 5 world into this entrepreneurial world, into coaching, into, running my own business. And so I think it's honestly when you meet people and you have to stop yourself because, what you did for the past 10 years isn't what you're doing anymore. And so just rewiring those instinctual responses. And, but I don't, it's more exciting now because it's stepping into this next part of my life, as opposed to being resistant and on the edge of, like, I should be doing this, but I want to be doing this. And yeah, so I feel like it's not necessarily resistance, but it's more so just getting more comfortable with how I introduce myself.
Can you speak to the transition between living like a coach and then actually becoming a coach professionally, like the business of coaching, irregardless of where you are in the journey? Because I feel like it's an important one, because there are a lot of people. One of the things in our unlimited community is there are people who are transitioning from a corporate job to, I have a higher calling. I want to help people around personal growth or how self-improvement, you name it, emotional intelligence. And there's the way that we have always done things, the way that we could air quote should do things, versus, wait a second, there is no better time than right now.
Yeah. I think for me, it was really just taking messy action. Like, I'm such a planner, and I felt like I have to have everything planned out exactly before I can transition. And I think that was really holding me back, because I was redoing my website over and over and redoing my client profiles over and over, because I just wanted them to be exactly right. When in reality, the universe was just like, no, just take a step and then I will guide you and I will help you with the flow. And when I just kind of let go of trying to be in control of every step and making it perfect, when I just released that expectation and trusted that, okay, I'm just going to take this next step and see what happens, taking the action is what actually started to build the business. I mean, it took me months to get the first version of my website out, because I was so hung up on verbiage and, on what exactly how it should look and this and that. But the moment that I let go and I just got it up and I saw, then, like, it gave me the next step, and, like, after that of what I should do, like, the moment that started happening, I was like, wow, if I just keep doing the messy action, it will unfold naturally. And of course it's not perfect. And if there's going to be many revisions and this and that, but I've gotten further in the past 2 months than I have in the past 2 years, because I started letting go of what I thought the plan should be exactly.
So much goodness inside of this, because guess what? You will never stop trying to get your verbiage correct. And I can share this from my own experience as someone who is, Colin and I are creating version 2.0 of the Unlimited website. Why? Because version 1.0 was, let's just get this thing live so that people can actually start signing up. And it's one of the things that I've learned, and I love the term messy action, is because when you're sitting there at zero, nothing can happen. When we just keep going over and over and over again, versus let's get V1 out. We've got a minimum viable quality standard. Listen, we know it's not perfect, but I heard a good thing this week from Cameron Harold, who says, my goal is just to make everything a B. Because once it's a B, then we can get it out, and I can go and hire people later on to make it an A. And this is such a good thing, because once you get that first website out, your first offer, your first lead magnet, your first podcast, your first video, your first client, whatever it is, everything changes. And it's one of the things that I've really learned on the podcasting side when working with clients. Since I've done this over 1,000 times, I sit there and I know this to be true. What somebody feels and experiences before their podcast is live is so different than the 1 minute after they've published their very first episode and it is out in the world. Once it's out in the world, it's like it went from black and white to color, and they go, oh my God, everything changed. So I sit there and I'm like, knowing this, now you're in the game. So I created these sort of phases. It's like 0 to launch, but then once you've launched, your vision should be on episode 20, Because I know once you get to 20 episodes, you've rode the bike enough times to understand and experience what it takes to be better at the thing that you're doing. So you'll be significantly better on episode 20 than you will be on episode 1. But we spend so much time tripping about just getting the first thing out without realizing it's misplaced focus. Because the real goal is to get to episode 20, not to get to episode 1.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's very well said.
Yeah, well, and of course, I have to learn by failing and doing myself, because we do have this level. And one of the things that makes us great as coaches is this level of excellence, this standard, this attention to detail. Because I know on my end, I see and hear everything. And in the world of marketing and optimization, everything is something, it's a lever that we can pull up and down. So you can spend an hour on the verbiage of your hero text at the top of your website. Well, if that doesn't speak to somebody's outcomes or pain points or benefits, then I'm not doing it right. And if I'm not doing it right, then can I call myself a coach? Will I not get clients? Is this the reason it's working or not working? And you get all this head trash there versus, hey, what's the thing that we would just love to do? I would really love to coach and help people create more of what they would love in their life, personally or professionally. Oh, well, why don't we just start living in that a little bit more? And Emily, I know you had a recent victory where you'd mentioned you put it out there that you wanted to work with 2 people, and they took you up on that offer. Can you share a little bit more about that experience of like where you were at 0 to, wait a second, let me take that first little messy action, and what that created in yourself?
Yeah. So I was just, again, there were parts I had built this program, not even all of it. It was not even completely built, but I was getting hung up on my coaching program and okay, week 3, I should do this, and week 4, I should do this. And then I was like, I'm just going to put this out there and see what happens. Because if I put this out there and somebody responds wanting to do it, and the offer was, I've put together this coaching program. I'm willing, I want to take someone through it, 2 people, for free. And the only thing I ask is, you don't even have to write me a testimonial. I'm just looking for feedback. And I put it on my Instagram story, and 2 people did say, hey, I want to do a discovery call with you. And, and they eventually said yes and wanted to move forward with this. But in me doing that, when they said yes, and now involved, I brought another person into this, another person who's going to depend on me, another person who's putting trust in me, who because I posted this on Instagram, they've been following me and they've found value and connection in my content. That just changed the game for me, because then all of a sudden, this totally shifted in my world to now, instead of me worrying about exactly what's going to happen in week 5 and week 6, it was like, okay, just get to the next week. And what can we do here? And what do you need? Okay, I want a portal for all of their resources set up. I want a way to contact them. And then it became so much more clear, even there, of the next steps to take. And I think that it also it's always been very important to me, but it made it that much more real that I was now involving someone else. And I was like, wow, this is extremely important now, because I am literally taking someone through this, and I'm going to be working with them in real life. And so when that happened, it forced myself to level up a whole nother level completely, which was really good for me. And it was, it was a little bit scary to do that, but I was like, this is what I have to do in order to get to the next level.
I love that. So you talked about this scary in order to get to the next level, because in the building of a coaching business, what you're going to quickly realize is that is the way, nonstop. So how much time do you want to create or delay for yourself for creating the results that you want to, or what you want to do out there? And of course, I can share tons of stories about how I failed at this. The best example, which I use nonstop, because one of the things with Unlimited is we're actively all building online businesses. We've got coaches, entrepreneurs, we've got amazing people doing amazing things. And one of the things that we're actively doing is sharing how Colin and I are building Unlimited. And I often say it took me 3 years to get to this point, because I've always wanted to do a group or a community or a mastermind because I knew, one, what I was great at, but two, how I could help so many more people. But then here comes the fears, the judgments, the self-limiting beliefs as someone where you say, well, I'm building a coaching business that has one-on-one coaching. Who am I to go and create a group program at the same time? But then what if nobody shows up? And all this stuff comes here, and it's very easy to lose the purpose or the reason why you're doing that thing, because there's a lot of shiny objects that are out there in terms of this is the way or this could be a possibility versus really anchoring in your vision. And it took Colin and I coming together, both having an aligned vision of what we knew was possible. And the number one thing that I've learned, and I'm going to preach this into perpetuity, was what changed in me from being the person who thought about this for 3 years to being the person who did it. And it's only one thing: commitment. That's all it was. Because I'll say this in the hard way, I have done a webinar with 0 people. And the reason is because you have to commit to, I'm sharing this no matter if anybody shows up or not. And no one showed up. And it was like, oh my God, do I still, because I've got what exactly I've been there to teach and share and do all of that. Do I allow the results or the non-results to stop me from the act of creation? And I remember there was a quote: in order to lead 1,000, you first need to be willing to lead 1. And in my instance, with 0 people showing up on that webinar, I was leading 1, me. And it ended up being a beautiful gift for myself. Because if I'm willing to do something where 0 people shows up, man, I can go for the moon because I'm willing to lead myself. So as it related to us building Unlimited, the real thing was a lack of commitment around, all right, we got calls on Monday at 11 a.m. and Thursdays at 9 a.m. And these are happening whether anybody shows up or not. And when you're on your own as a coach, without doing this as a partner, man, that can feel like a lot. All of a sudden you're like, well, what if I'm making no money? Or now I'm promoting this thing and there's so much as head trash comes in. But once you commit, and Emily, as you experienced, then you get that first person and it's like, oh my God, somebody has joined. Like I remember when Connie joined the very first call with Colin and I, we had one person and we're like, oh my God, there's one person in this community. This is unbelievable. And then the next Thursday got there and there was like 3 more people. And it's like, holy smokes, this is unbelievable. And as we record this now, there's 21 people in the community. And you were one of the earlier people in this. And once again, in order to get to 21, you first got to get off of 0. And getting off of 0 for me was creating that commitment that said, we are planting a flag on the date. We're doing these calls. If no one shows up, Colin and I are going to chop it up and we're going to have the time of our life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's so true. And I love that example because it's not like you had one person show up, you had 0 and you said, I'm the one, and you have to lead yourself. And I also resonate a lot with the fact that when I really started to build my business, like actively on the side, outside of my job at the time, like I started realizing how lonely it is because nobody around me is doing it. And I kept questioning myself, is this worth it? Am I doing it right? Like, and I was very quiet about it because I felt like the people that I did tell really didn't understand. And they loved me and they said, okay, we support you, but they really didn't understand. And I think they were inadvertently planting seeds of doubt because, the logical thinking mind is, how are you going to support yourself? What are you going to do for this? Blah, blah, blah. And so that's very hard. And so coming across Unlimited was really amazing for me because then even though these people are all over the world, you come together and you're in a room where other people, like you said, say, I got you, I understand you, and I'm here to support you. And I think that is invaluable. And that's why, that's one of the reasons why I joined, but continued to just have, such like love for this community because there's just so many people in there who have been where I am, but also I will be one of those leaders who I can share my experience with other people in the future too.
And it's exactly why I wanted to have you on this podcast to talk about this specific thing. Because one of the things that I've always believed in is all around co-creation, that where Colin and I sit in this as leaders, we don't see this as let Rob and Colin just talk the whole time and it's someone who just sits there and everybody else listens. It's like, no, this is active co-creation where we're more like guides or Sherpas that are leading conversations and bringing everybody together to do these breakouts, because I get as much out of these things as everybody else does. So we are active participants because I know with having a growth mindset, there's always an opportunity for me to learn from others. And in this instance, the biggest things that I pick up is all around the language, the challenges, the victories of everybody in the community, and how that relates to both my journey, my messaging, because you even talked about it, Emily, is the value-driven content that connects someone to you. And the best things that I can do is say, okay, if our community is talking about these things, then I want to help bring in more people who want to talk about these things, because ultimately this is a space where we have more of the conversations about growing our business and growing our life together. And yes, we talk about anything from AI to self-development to building your brand to just being creative, because so much of this has come from my feelings that you feel of the loneliness, the isolation. Am I doing this right or wrong? Where do I turn? Because as coaches, we're all in. We show up a certain way. Like, I know for me, this is a lifestyle. This is who I am. This is how I live. And even though there was some challenge around the identity early on, man, I love being a coach. It is the absolute best because it is who I am. I'm here to make the world a better place, one person or interaction at a time. And I always craved those conversations. So when I would have a once a week call with Colin, I was like, man, this is like the best time for us. And Colin would get as much value coaching me as I would get creating with him. And that's when the light bulb went off. And we're like, why don't we just create a space where we can all learn, share, create with each other, celebrate our wins, share our struggles and our challenges so that we can all lift each other up. And of course, there's resources and tools and other things there. But all of us together, man, it feels different to me because I just think about our relationship. Like, I legitimately see you as a friend, and it wasn't even like a big grandiose, like, we're friends now. Like, I'm just going to text you or I'll call you. It's like you're part of the community, but more importantly, just like I get down with you. So now we're friends.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because there are so many different walks of life in Unlimited. There's people that just walking down the street that I would never think that I would have anything in common with. But when we break out into these smaller groups and get to really discuss things with one another, you start to find how people are so much more interconnected than you expected. And it's really eye-opening and just so interesting how people just like come together and also like really uplift one another from all different parts of the world, all different businesses, all different vocations. Like it's really inspiring.
Yeah, and Emily, your growth is inspiring to me because you're creating a positive impact on others. And as we wrap this up, I would love for you to, one, if someone is sitting here and they're listening to this and maybe they are a coach currently or they're working in a job and they would love to become one, or they just want to be an entrepreneur or a business owner, and they're sitting here and they're like, man, I'm vibing with what you guys are saying, and they're considering, wait a second, what is this unlimited thing? What would you say to them?
I would say that if you feel like you have a deeper knowing that you're meant for something more, that where you are now is, you know, where you're not supposed to end up. I would definitely explore unlimited as a possibility to help you unlock that next level of your full potential and help you along with other people explore that side of you that you may not have tapped into yet, maybe out of out of fear or out of safety or your mental safety, trying to keep yourself like in the box. But just I think that unlimited is a place in a network that is so wonderful, and it's a place where people genuinely care about the growth and well-being of other people. So I would highly recommend it.
Well, thank you for that. And Emily, people can have more conversations like this with those people, and I love it. And what I would love to do is, where can everybody connect with you? So imagine your ideal client is listening right now, and they're like, wait a second, this Emily Chapman sounds pretty amazing. What do you do, and where can people connect with you?
Okay, so my website is emilychapmancoaching.com. And then my Instagram handle is empowered self-care, but it's EM as in me, Emily, underscore powered self-care.
Awesome. And who would be an ideal person that you could help?
The ideal it's women. The ideal women that I would help are women in their 30s and 40s who have reached a point in their life where they feel like they are transitioning and they know that they're meant for something more, but they're not totally sure what that thing is. And they're looking for more fulfillment out of life and wanting to connect with the most authentic and deepest part of themselves so that they can really flourish.
I love it. Emily, you're fantastic. I love having you part of the community. I love that we've become friends. And I love that I get to follow your journey and be a champion for you in all that you do. And I would love to hear from you. What from this episode inspired you or caused you to take action? You can hit me up on all social media platforms at Rob Cressy. Sending tons of good vibes your way. Hope you have yourself an amazing rest of the day.